Hey, welcome to what I'm gonna be calling, man, it's underground science. Maybe a little summary is what I'm kind of thinking now that I've gone through it slowly. Maybe I can go through it more readily. So I started here making this. Here's put out an outline here to make it a little better of where the actual continents, where the edge of the current ocean is, not where the continental shelf is, but where the outline of the continents, where the water line is, pretty much. And then these are flow lines outward, and right here, mantle boundary puncture hole. So basically, let me zoom in. Well, I'll even pull up this map actually. A vortex weapon was used here. It then caused a vortex that physically moved over this way. Let's get Google Maps too. Let's get Google Maps. Just say Girnar. Why not? Here's Girnar. So just a little bit about Girnar. It is crystalline. Get this out of the way. Not quite prepared, I guess. I should have been like, get all tabs ready. Crystalline, it's a hexagon with what is also a circular ring that's also part of a square topography that has 90-degree angles here. This boundary is parallel to this boundary. This is it's pretty much just, it is a crystal. These are 90 degrees, these are 90 degrees. Alright, this, and then this final section, like here, basically. Where this little section is 120 degrees. Where this is 90 degrees here, but this is 120 degrees. It's crazy, just like the geometry of Mount Girnar, which is also... So I said in my Dwarka video that Mount Girnar was caused by a vortex weapon that then basically I thought the vortex went this way and just kind of went through here and caused this like lightning strikes as it went, and then this. But I realized yesterday, or recently, I've been realizing. Initially, I was like, "This can't be related to Girnar. It's just too far away. I'd be so unreasonable to suggest it." But now I'm realizing it is. There's no question. This is related. This is the plug. So, as I was saying here, this storm, so really what happened, it didn't go here. Here's Dwarka. It actually went here through this region, which is why this region's all swamplands. Until it reached, I guess, so notice how porous it is here and how directionally this wind is. Like this was carved by a wind and a downward like carving into the land kind of wind, because it was like ether flow that was physically puncturing into the earth here to reach all the way down to the mantle over here to actually puncture through it, produce a connection, a channel through the boundary between the mantle and the crust that formed like a rind, like a outer edge that just protects the crust from the mantle and prevents mixing. But because it got punctured, they mixed. Basically, the mantle came up through the puncturing and swept the top of the layer that it was like the rind. It swept the top of the rind of the crust and just sat in the basin of the crust in essence. and formed a new sheet of intermediary layer of crust that caused the Earth to expand. So this vortex came over here, though, I'm thinking, did that, and then maybe even there might even be subtle imprints of its actual like eye. Maybe like the eye was right there at some point. Really just sitting here scarring this as the storm accumulated energy, maybe, or discharged energy, and one or the other, or initially accumulated, then started to discharge. Like it was accumulating energy here, and then it started to discharge energy here, maybe. I don't know. But it seems to have then carved in here and just cause all of this region to be just swept with these features that probably die off the further up this way I go. Seem to get less and less, but still there, which is crazy how far this wind was blowing. Because the eye was here, so the wind was probably going this way and maybe this way. Let's see if there's opposing ones this way at all here. There's really not any of that wind-looking feature. It might not have been quite able to be impacted. I feel like there should be the wind-looking feature spiraling more so. Kind of looks like, it's hard to say what's like natural and what's man-made sometimes, just by like habitation. But so this storm, though, regardless, for certain, it generally discharged into here to puncture the mantle through here. It carved a channel through, punctured the mantle, which then began to flow out literally in all directions here. I know I say literally a lot, but maybe it's because they are literally. And it is literally a lot of the time when it's like kind of emphasizes that it is literal. Although maybe I misuse it sometimes. Admittedly. Okay. Then it comes down here, and I think it starts to discharge and maybe it's as it's moving, it's physically projecting a like crystalline structure over this way that's just underground, and then over here especially, like, because this Mount Girnar slopes down at 60-degree angles out to about here according to seismography in a very complex way. And I wonder if it forms almost like a diamond tip at here, two pyramids, one at the top, one at the bottom, that connects to some thread coming from over here that just threads over and like was basically a channel. Maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know what it looks like down there to really see if there's like complexities that would maybe be suggestive of that. But then the energy is discharging here. For sure, it's like pulling up, welling up, and material. So maybe it doesn't like physically in a like able to be perceivable way connect, but just the fact that they are energetically connected. Maybe there's a space between it. I'm just noticing this is maybe shalogrammy. Just a thought, not really, but maybe some like rough formation of it didn't really work out very well. I don't know. But then it discharges fully here, and this is like the final discharge where like this while it's discharging, it's also sending energy physically into the earth that's like going counterflow to the outflow to fill in, like kind of like if you drink a bottle of water, like the gas will fill in the bottle. So it's like ether filling in the mantles, like displacing the mantle, producing a a void within the earth that pushed up the mantle by ether flows that was able to stably produce a void underneath it to lift it up and push it outward and bubble out the earth into like a big old bubble. But then the storm itself was, so this is like a cathode at that point, and the storm itself is like an anode. And so maybe that's kind of related to what's going on here. That there's like a cathode membrane-ish structure, maybe some kind of membrane. And then the anode of Gujarat, India, that especially has the like anode of Girnar relative to the outflow to connect through the layers to produce balance between the two. And now there's balance in Mount Girnar exists. Okay, back to this. Let's keep going though. So this flow goes out in all directions. Out in all directions. Down between, it starts carving between the continental shelf, which is, by the way, an ammonite shape. So, like, let's look real subtly here. There's like a curvature here. I know I might be a little cheating right now in saying this. And here, this looks almost like an ammonite. Here, like on the side of it, like the bumps and and it wraps around kind of. So essentially, it's that the boundary is not just like a perfectly flat layer. It's more like an ammonite where it has like ups and downs that then when this current flowed along the ammonite-like surface that it flowed along, the mantle that came out of this puncture hole, it's then started to flow along an ammonite-like surface. And so it selectively went past along the ammonite shell this way between this layer. So this one's going to hook around like down here, down here. Oops. And we're going to see it literally hooks into South America and around. So it goes down here. So here's South America. It hooks into it from here. And then there's also, that's about all I had to say about that, although it's a little confusing at that point. There's also like some subtleties here I'll get into later that where this is not quite as boundary formed because the flows of current that were flowing here were just passing through the more ammonite-like features, which didn't actually form a boundary here as well, because it wasn't quite the polygonal structures that tend to form like here. Like there's a wall there, so the current does hit the walls of the polygons of the outer shell of the outer wall of the continental crust here, and it couldn't go through it, so they went around it. At times they could go through it like here, which is why there's actually, we can see the polygons and a channel down between them, and then the polygons again and probably a channel. But so here's Girnar, here's that thing. It's gonna radiate in all directions, and so if we just start here and go westward, so let's just go westward, even though it goes in all directions. And so because it's critical that it goes in all directions, because I realized as I was going through this that they start to collide from like this flow going this way collides with this flow and has consequences in terms of shaping the features of the earth. So this flow comes this way And as it's moving this way, which is probably from pole to pole, like this is a pole, so maybe it's moving directly towards another pole. I'm not sure, even though it's east to west now. But it goes this way essentially for some reason, which I'll get into. Basically, it starts to produce this wall. So let's just say it goes this way around this wall, but it actually, the reason this wall is here is more related to that there's a flow coming in front. It goes around this way, wraps around, and comes back down here and creates this wall. So this wall is formed by this overall wrapping around this flow. And then here is cursed magnetic anomaly that this flow flowed in and kind of just filled this region with a high amount of material, high density, so it's more just more material here. High magnetic anomaly, more material here to produce a higher anomaly. Because essentially it's a measure of how much material at that point, I believe. Even though it's magnetic. So this goes here though, and it cuts out here. Maybe the critical reason this is here, actually almost guaranteed, is because it doesn't just go up this way. It also cuts directly across here. This is connected to here. Cuts in through here into North America. So this is closed. Mind you, the Earth is expanding, so the continents are still directly adjacent. So this flow feeds right into here, and this gap starts to open as the flow pushes the continents apart, basically. And it's flowing through here, through down, so it manages to puncture into the walls that naturally formed along the polygonal shapes of the Earth's crust initially, I believe, unless maybe this is actually shaped by the currents like that. It came in through this way, hit a wall. This is for sure hitting a wall here, I realize, because Yellowstone is over here, which is fed by a current from over here, which is fed by a current from over here. So if we keep going back, it's fed all the way from that initial current. It wraps around here. It doesn't just go around this cursed magnetic anomaly. It also goes up around here, through here, causes this nova, which punctures this wall, allowing for the flow here, and then it flows through here, but then it also flows up through here, where it then hits this continental, like there's resistance space. It hits resistance from the material of the continents adjacent that then are moving apart, but still producing a boundary. So this current here flows around, where it then meets the current from up there again, that's flowing around this top section. So this current flows around the top, and as it does it, it causes nova after nova after nova after nova after nova after nova, just opening up this gap like a shallogram. Not like this. So these are more common, these kind of shallogram features. But like this. Nova, 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 nova. And just opening up the gap. I know people don't understand those to be fossils necessarily, and I'm just bringing them up right away and moving on like that. But they're not fossils. They're caused by actual energy flows like this. So let's go back here. This comes this way, and it causes a nova there, which punctures through here, allows this energy more easily to flow here. And then this nova punctures, basically it punctures this way because there's current here flowing around this way, producing a wall here. And then the current that comes this way is caused to basically flow around the very edge until it can't go anywhere else. It hits that current and just wraps around until a nova occurs, which, because of the pressure of the current over here, is just focused this way through this boundary that was formed by the continent. It just creates enough space to move through the boundary and to flow. So then the current is then that was wrapping around here and caused to go this way is instead able to actually go through and down through here, which then causes a nova here. And it breaks this wall, and it also spirals into here and fills this region with smaller novas. And then it goes through here and reconverges with that initial larger channel flow, which wraps around. If we look close, we can kind of see the subtleties of this region where it wraps around here, but then this section is like a broken off secondary section that's actually feeding down here. So anything that goes down here ends up going down into North America here. But otherwise it continues this way, some of it getting also into North America still over here, but not quite in the torrent that's flowing along the coastline. And there's another continent here. Australia is down here. Down here. Here's Australia's like connection points, openings between North America and Australia that allowed a current to flow. So this current though is flowing over here, and mind you, it goes not over top, but along an angle, so it spirals in. So this causes a spiral in, where then Yellowstone, having pressure over here, is caused to generally supernova or nova in this direction out this way. So this starts ripping out this way, but it runs into the resistance of the initial current flowing this way, which then creates a boundary, a more distinct boundary. I'd say this one maybe, I don't know, somewhere over. It creates it basically is probably why this is deflected, because of all of the pressure of the currents generally flowing this way. It's not just a nova, but just currents are just pushing over against this structure. Probably that's why this is downward, because the currents are drilling in. Because if they reach a resistance, they'll go sideways and downward and upward. They'll go all directions. They'll just spread out in all four directions, basically. And so they'll start carving down into it, producing a void because of this the resistance. So that it looks like that's what's going on here. And therefore it flowed down here. Some of it was able to get over here to connect through to this current so that it's stable. And then the current from over here, from Dwarka, that cut across under Europe here. Cut across under Europe from Dwarka, cut across under Europe. This current cuts across, comes over, and it hits that current that was cutting across from the North American side, or from the northern Russia side, up northern Atlantic ridge, that side, going that way. Those collide, and that produces that. But then they merge more down here. This one also, so this one hit this flow, comes down here, and it starts opening a gap between North America and South and Africa over here. So there's a channel carved. This channel is probably more like a main channel, while these are just like offshoots that are able to be fed due to breaking through the walls. But this is like the main channel probably, and it just breaks right through the boundary that existed, where Florida is, like, it had a polygonal boundary more like this underneath it that just got shattered with this current flowing across it. But because South America was here, which we can even see it still imprinted in this map, the portion of South America that was right here is still there, and it's missing from South America. The underlayer, and some of this is new, so it's really here that's missing. This portion. This portion is new material that was accreted on the side due to this shotgun of energy here coming out of here. So this current, these currents basically run into resistance of Australia, Antarctica over here. Australia and Antarctica is fed like somewhere over here. I haven't looked into Antarctica enough to really distinctly be like here, but it flows this way, and this channel is able to start carving into this boundary that was forming between the polygons of North America and Australia. So it carves through and flows into Australia, which I'll get to, but it also flows down here, so there's a crossing stream coming this way, which is probably related to why there's a nova here. Coming like right here at this current and this current's intersection point, pretty much, is maybe why a nova went off there. Some like breaking of bonds that ultimately was driven by the crossing of the currents there. But this current flows down through the Yucatan Peninsula and down into Central America and just shoots out of this tiny little, just shooting out of it, leaving this imprint here. Some of it drains into the earth here. Some reason it just drains into the earth as like a drainage point that's opposite to Mount Girnar, I believe. The puncture point is maybe antipodal to this before, at that time maybe, and that's why this formed here. So essentially when it punctured, it also went around the earth and punctured another hole, which is how poles form, by not just one pole, but it goes around and causes the other pole somehow. And so this energy, though, flows through here and was feeding into South America until the Earth, like, suddenly and abruptly shifted, where like, South America had a very, very energetic force being applied into this region. From here down the coast, just like a huge wave shoving into it, and also not just shoving into it, but carving little like boop 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 boop, but along the coast, like some like focused point of the energy was especially drilling in at certain points where it stabilized along the way, and then it moved and stabilized and moved, almost like a step-by-step motion, like in increments. And then this flow then is cutting across South America, where it then creates openings between South America and Africa while they're still conjoined, which we can follow across here. And see, it's just drilling into the ground, producing this low density region. Here's Nader Crater, which went off at Chicxulub time frame, which also Girnar was formed then, Deccan Traps, Boltish Crater, Shiva Crater, more and more things. So this went off then, but this was a bond, like a chemical bond between like two atoms, where the bond, in order to be broken, required a sufficient activation energy of really just pushing the two systems apart. And then the bond broke suddenly, and they just got shoved apart. But initially, before they were shoved apart, while they were still conjoined, before this spreading occurred, this flow from this unit from over here wasn't actually coming in here. It was coming in here. It's just flowing in from this tip here, and then it spread out into a fireball. You can see it, like the flames of the fireball that just protrude out of the edge of South America. So this flaming fireball across the country of South America underneath it flowed underneath it and into Africa at certain points where the drainage was most able to happen. And this one, especially here, this drainage point at this very tip here, drained right into here, which then threaded through Africa, this path here. And as the continents moved apart, South America was still draining, leaving behind, again, incremental little bloops on as they separated until it was no longer able to. It probably did this too, just kind of left like a last outburst, kind of blah, blah. And here we see a bit of the trails left behind. So it goes in there. It definitely influences this like nucleus. It also, this nucleus pre-existed because the flows flow around it. They carve through it for sure. Like they managed to probably cause the nucleus to sever in half. So it's like two systems now, kind of. Like it's separated it. But it still produced a substantial wall. So the currents flowing in here really like went up this way a lot to here and drained out more over this way. But then they, in so doing, they joined the river back this way. So the East African Rift zone starts here, comes down here, goes around this system and both sides, down here, down this way and this way, and almost like a vibrating. That's interesting. Around, 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 around. But importantly, this system, when this current's flowing across, blocks the current so that it has to go up here, and this is pretty much where that begins, right there. So like the currents couldn't go in up here because they were facing the resistance of the currents that this system was deflecting to this region. So it was really the entry point for currents coming from over here to get into this section of Africa was right where it happened. And then because this body was there, they were able to extend into Africa. And then there's another system which they went both sides around, caused it to supernova, it looks like. But they went around it on both sides, over here and over here. It looks like maybe there's another one here. I don't want to get caught up on stuff I haven't. It looked further in by looking into it as I go, because I really want to just keep recapping. So generally speaking, it looks like this blocks it, causes a sufficient region for for this to occur. And then it's no longer blocking it, so it starts to come back this way. But then down here, the shell of the ammonite is like producing a sort of a bend in the curve in the flows, kind of like encouraging the flows into South America down here. And also because the entry point is up here, it's really not. The flows are more here. Like stuff down here is really able to be more not quite. It's clearly coming across from South America to Africa here. So like this, because of the way it trails as it moved, it definitely was because this was draining the energy into the carving the ground as it moved, carving the structure. So for sure it was flowing this way into Africa, probably from here, like right at the tip, right along the edge, which I'm pretty sure ammonites are like that, whereas real living creatures have the energy current position more at a center point, which differentiates the two in other ways, where we just assume that that's because they're extinct and they used to be like that, but now they have it down the middle for other reasons. Which maybe there's insight from that, but it's certainly also because the flows are going like energy flows of physics. They're flowing this way into South America for sure. So I guess essentially this boundary of the polygon kind of holds stuff over here, which then just interacts with the flow crossing flows. So there's a flow coming down here held in by the wall that then is interacting with the cross flows, and then those are novaing in more in smaller ways, but still in real ways that actually look like they collectively nova after one after another in a way that produces like a collective wave through the continent here. Kind of similar to this structure over here. Which is definitely wave-like. It's not like sharp bends or soft bends. It's really wave-like. Like we can see wave-like features to it. Maybe not that. That's more what I mean by not wave-like, but it's probably really hard to make wave-like features like that. Perfect circumstances. So this eye blocks off the energy, which allows it to come up to here probably. Interesting. So this current flowing across that this eye blocks off, I wonder if that has anything to do with this region being like where the Sahara isn't. Because this way, I don't know. I think the Sahara is just more so related to like deserts that were released here that flowed out this way, drained over this way. Okay, so now we've gone from Dwarka westward through Europe into North America, down into South America. We've gone through Europe northward into the Shaligram North Pole region, down through Asia a little bit, a decent amount, I guess. I talked about this. How not completely though, and we went through this region, and then so let's go. While I'm here, let's really look at this a little bit more. This is coming here. We can see a flow, a current that's kind of here and here as its boundaries. Or actually here, yeah, here, around here, wrapping around here, and then coming down here, and then it collides with this source that's coming in here and filling this region. So this kind of makes like a stable basin between this region and this wall, probably because this current's flowing this way and this current's flowing this way, so they're colliding and just creating like a more macroscopic basin that's more detectable. Here's another basin. And then where they collide, they produce this, where this one collides with this boundary, it produces this like triangle shape, wedge shape that where it bends off of to kind of deflect the path. And this one goes, this one's really interesting. It goes, so the one I was initially looking at here comes down here, and splits. So half of it, which really, if we look at closely at this one goes here, here. So it is the whole opening here, pretty much. And then this goes here. So this one though is not. So it goes to here. So there's almost like a flow coming through this section that's gonna go this way, whereas there's a flow coming through this section that goes across this way. And then a portion of this flow ends up being deflected this way because of the energy flowing this way. And it also cuts across, like we can see this current breaks through the boundary a bit and carves through here, especially little channels. Just like shallograms, it's able to open little channels, but not the entire boundary broken. Where we see like here, like this channel, right along the edge, it just gets a little further through here than like going through here, because it is opening up at the boundary here. So this one though comes over here and it collides with this one. So the Girnar, or the puncture hole in the crust mantle boundary, where it's draining upward into the crust, into beyond the boundary, into the crust. This opening drains in all directions, drains over here, but then it causes that current to come back here, which then runs into this current coming up this way. And so their colliding currents basically are exactly where the Himalayas are. Here's the more distinct feature of the Himalayas here, past the Himalayas. This feature is more distinct here. We can tell it's right there. Whereas the Himalayas are hard to see because it's lacking data, really. But they're pretty much from here over to there, which is because this current gets deflected by this current that's coming up, and it just produces this big wall that is the Himalayas, especially here. And just the particulars of the current flow rates and so on drive the Himalayas into just like rising out of the ground, folding on top of itself, but rising out of the ground, and as the Himalayas, I mean. And so it doesn't stop there though. This is where, so let's follow this one real carefully. It's definitely a little subtle through here, but we can follow these, apparently. I realized, like, we can follow these trails and kind of get an idea of how they influence one another. So this comes across here. We can see it coming here, like down through here. And it looks like it spreads out too. Like it's spreading out, coming down through here, spreading out. Let's just follow this one. I think I'm following it. It's kind of hard to see. Wait, I need to find where I'm going. Here it is. Here it is. Here's the line I'm looking for, right here. Let's follow that one. So that one, there we go. That one, it comes down through here. Oh, maybe it was this one here. Okay, it comes down through here, and then it ends at the Mariana Trench, at the tip of the Mariana Trench. So for sure, it collided with another wave, which I'll get into, which I have not talked about yet because that's really over here. So this current that flowed across here, there was the one coming across here, but then the one coming this way was able to actually cut through the boundary and begin to, we can follow the line. Push until it started to spread, but that's what it was pushing into was here, right here. This section of Australia was connected, and it was just getting kind of pushed off like a hose spraying something, and it just rolls away on its wheels, kind of thing, by the pressure. It's just moving away, but the force is so strong from that current that it's carving into here until it reached the nucleus and caused the nucleus of Australia to supernova, I believe, in a way where it like projected debris through it and more, although I'm not completely sure that all of Australia experienced a nova, because it's not that apparent unless it's over here that it happened. Here, there's just a sea of circles that overlap one another, which I'll get into. But back to this, basically, as we can see, it's colliding with that sea of circles, like it's related to its positioning. So this flow, though, it came out also over here. Maybe I can come off of here, off of South America, follow this one. This one, this one, this one. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Still following it to here? I'm not sure what. Okay, wait, what? I'm not sure about that one. Pardon me for not being sure as I'm doing a summary video. So let me just kind of go through what I am sure about so I can get a bearing on this. So what I've concluded is that where that energy was coming out was we can see. How about this? Let's start with the imprint of Australia. These currents run into resistance. If we look closely, they run into resistance. Where is it? Here. I think it's here. Yeah. Here they're running into resistance. There's this like outline here of Australia that we can see. And here's a flow coming into them, into Australia, and then branching around it because it was running into resistance. So there's a flow there. And then it's breaking through here, which if we look over at Australia, it's breaking through here. Noticeably, here it's like it's smaller, and then it's suddenly like way wider, and then it vibrates and comes to a much more stable. This is when like shit went down. This was it right here. Like the change between the 66 million years and like the propagation of the energy. It's because the layers are all forming like a conduit that's just in the same way as the Earth is filling in an intermediary layer. They're flowing where like there's a tube and then a new layer forms inside the tube and then a new layer inside that new layer, and they just spread out into this large system that then like the newer ones are at the center, but like it's still a flowing current that's like moving through the earth, and at some point it just like when it was able to break through this, it basically it finally broke through enough to get the Earth to expand. Because that's really what would relieve the internal pressure, was a new radius of the Earth. It would not be sufficient otherwise. So that flow, though, like, let's just start from the eye, okay? Rather than like talking about the continent itself, let's just look at this. This here, we can see this shape that folds outward. If we just trace it backward to its source-ish, so like it bends here, so maybe just tracing it back to, it seems to be connected to this region. It's hard to tell somewhat what exactly is going on here, because there's so much, like, there's just so much going on. Like, this suddenly jumps. Like, there's a lot of sudden jumps, some here and there, around the supernova timing. But so this energy flows generally out of here, I believe. This current generally is flowing out and pressuring against some kind of resistance. Probably here. And it just fans out. It just fans out when it breaks the resistance. It just fans out, shoves Australia out of the way, so it can fan out. It's almost like if I go like this, and then Australia is my thumb, and then I go like this, and now it's fanned out, like it moved, but it really just opened a gaping hole that moved Australia. And then it reached a radius where it was essentially meeting resistance from the other side. So this gaping hole was pushing this way, this current, and then it just met resistance where it started to bounce back. So it flows this way, while this current on the top half of the gaping hole flows up this way until it pushes against Asia sufficiently to have resistance, which probably is why north-south gravitational alignment exists here, is because of the currents coming from this way, from the Himalayan direction up here, colliding with this currents that then deflects down here, and coupled with this deflection come through here and kind of just generally move the energy flows to a point so that they can basically make a longitudinal projection of a wave, which has eddies on the end here. And then this is kind of, it has a hexagon here that it energetically has a hexagon. It's not just has a hexagon, it energetically has one. Where over here, the current coming this way across Asia from over here, cuts across and hits this current at that hexagonal boundary. It meets enough resistance to branch the current out into this like depression into the ground. It's just carving in the Mariana Trench and etc. this region. But that current keeps going, where it then meets the other side, this current, which is branching off, and it runs into that current still cutting across over, I think this is it, let me look, let me go back to it's there, I think, maybe this, yeah, runs into this current. Another spiral emerges at Fiji. Here's Fiji, which has like a node here. And so this spiral, or this current and this current colliding produces like a node here, which then has a field around it. If we look closely, it has, I'm not sure, I'm looking at this from the angle, like it's rotated. I think I need to rotate, get this freaking thing rotated right. I've been generally looking at it more this way, but we can see it here and here. Around that system, a actual magnetic field type current flowed, and it also caused energy to propagate through that, like a gamma ray coming out of a galaxy. I think that's what whatever the just beams, whatever those beams of gamma rays are called. The jets. So it came out there, but then if we look closely, it branches over here, and it branches over here in like a trident type thing. And I was thinking about it. It's almost like it takes a single stream and it creates 3 streams by dividing it down the middle with a new stream. So there's an old stream that's divided in 2 and a new stream now down the middle, and then it widens this overall thing to being 3 streams. I don't know. And I've talked about this more. I mean, I'm really just trying to demonstrate the degree of how absurd this has become. So this nova, going back, goes off and goes off and goes off. And then these 2 novas kind of like squeeze this out, this arrowhead shape out, which then puts pressure on an adjacent system here, which then itself novas, which puts pressure on an adjacent system. So these just chain reaction very distinctly if you look closely. Right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they start to get smaller to the point where they're not detectable. But they for sure chain react like detonators going off down a wall because of just the collision of waves here that just kind of burst out energy here to boom kind of thing. Let's go back to Dwarka. Did I cover all the flows? I mean, generally speaking, I covered Africa's flow, I covered North America's flow, generally speaking. Like, maybe I could go through this a little more. This current comes down here and I did go through that. I mean, I think I'm good on there. I'm good on South America. Africa, Europe is pretty good in terms of this map. At least maybe some other nuances I talked about other places. And then Australia and Antarctica are also fed into. Antarctica is fed into from 2 locations. One from Africa and one from Australia, I believe. From both sides and filling it up. So I think like as it filled up the layers, the final layer to fill up was the top, which then blew its top when this filled. Like essentially all the pressures and the flows are going in all directions, and they spread out in all directions, and then at some point they filled the entire Earth underneath the continental crust, except for like one spot that they're last to get to, and I think they're coming from two sides here to fill up Antarctica, and so they basically boop, just cause it to just kind of like blow its top in a way, and that's really probably highly related to the when the process started to cause actual rapid expansion rather than a more slow and steady expansion. And then it stopped pretty when expansion was done. That's the thing, is it's not still doing this. People are like, oh, Earth's not expanding anymore, therefore Earth didn't expand in plate tectonics, but like, it's not doing this anymore. What else can I kind of point to? I mean, at this point, I can just do this. Let me direct you to the rest of my channel, especially other videos on this topic. San Gabriel Mountains. I don't know what that is. Underground science. Yes. Shalligrams. Yes. Himalayas. A lot of these videos, but also yes. Although maybe not quite as pressing. Definitely yes. Yes, yes, yes. Probably this playlist. Let's just see what this playlist is. I've been trying to make this one more just like everything. This is where it started. Like, is that Dwarka? It sure seems to match the description. And then here's where I'm like, Mount Girnar is cool. And then Mount Girnar video out of nowhere. And then more on it because I realized I was wrong about a lot of things, which I've realized I'm still wrong about a lot of things. And of course, I'm wrong about things that I think I'm right about now. But there's a lot of things I'm right about now that I'm right about then and will be right about later because they're just right. Like 2 + 2 is 4. I got that one. Although maybe not. Maybe not. Pardon me. Maybe that's just, you just gotta believe that you can make 2 + 2 = 5, and it will. It really will. It really will. And this one's definitely important, although I maybe don't want to point people to it so much. These are probably useful to kind of, especially if you watch this, like, what an asshole, or he's wrong about that, to really get my, like, reaction to it, where I'm like, I know this is a rough draft. Alright, calm down. Work with me already. Earth from a different angle. This video, 5 minutes, boom, blow your mind if you're paying attention. Really a good way to maybe kickstart and recognize that I'm onto something, although it's dangerous because if you don't recognize it, you just assume I don't know what I'm talking about, that kind of thing. Hopefully you're listening to me now so you actually acknowledge that I have something to say, value to you, and okay. These for sure. So this one's probably the best playlist to really catch up. Like, it's got that's important. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I got a lot of content, but if you really want to catch up on information, these are definitely, like, I mean, you could really just start here just to be like, dude's right. First off, like, good starting point. Dude's right. Maybe that would be a good place to start, is being like, yeah, the dude's fucking right, though. So, good to know, since I watched Underground Science, these videos. Dude's fucking right. Alright, guys. Thanks for listening.